All right. You tell me when to hit start stream.
We're recording, so.
Oh, so hit start stream now.
Yeah, do it.
All right, you tell me when to start singing She's So High.
'Cause she's so high. I thought you were going to get in there with harmony.
Yeah, or Aphrodite. That song really did it. Welcome to episode 251 of the All the Books Show, the official podcast of the David A. Howe Public Library. We talk book news, author news, and literary news. I'm Eric Mickles.
And I'm Nick Gunning. Did you forget for a minute there? There was a beat. Where I thought maybe you didn't know.
I was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I'm like, there is something after there? No. 250 plus episodes, and I still don't have it down pat.
I know, but I gotta give you hats off because we stopped saying recorded at the David A. Howe Public Library. And every time I can hear the hitch in your voice. But you did it. You do it. Every time for us. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
That's good. I just had a couple of Facebook memories came up that concerned you. Apparently, we saw Ringo Starr and his all-star band, and Kevin Smith up at Helium in Buffalo on the same day, a couple years apart. So it's a good day for us, I guess.
Yeah. And now we're doing episode 251.
Yeah. So. Exciting times. Definitely exciting times. Speaking of concerts, I was supposed to be at a Vampire Weekend concert. Corona canceled. Not going. Yeah. So that's a shame. We
were looking forward to seeing Matchbox 20 and the Wallflowers do their reunion joint tour together. It was going to be sweet. No, not happening.
No.
So excited for it.
Mm-hmm, I know you were. So. Well, we've got a light show for you today, folks. We felt like just doing something super chill, and we're going to be talking about our good friend, the Green Lantern.
Is that a play also on the fact that they use light as a weapon?
Oh, yes. Yes, all the different colors of the spectrum. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Green Lantern, comic book character, DC Comics character, Green Lantern.
Occasional comic book character.
Turns 80 this month. So we've got a special Off the Books episode that we did a while back that we're going to be putting out a little later this month. And today we're going to be focusing on Eric's favorite Green Lantern, John Stewart.
Wow. So I would say Hal has not aged well.
Okay.
Physically.
He's kind of a silver fox. He's got the gray hair.
Yeah, he's got the gray hair.
Yeah.
Kyle, I mean, he's kind of leaned into his 40s pretty well.
But he's so stuck in the 90s, right?
Yeah, that's true. John looks great. I think we can all agree that Guy Gardner has really physically he's gone downhill. He just punished his body for his entire life. And
he was doing all right. When Guy was a Red Lantern, I thought, he's pulling this off. But I know what you mean overall.
Yeah, when you start, I mean, all the chemicals that Guy Gardner has, introduced to his body.
Sure.
There's only so much a ring of Oa can do.
Absolutely.
So, 80 years on, some of them are looking better than others.
That's true. So we're going to be talking a little John Stewart and Green Lantern. I'm looking forward to DC's putting out a special 80th anniversary thing, much like they did with the Robin's 80th anniversary a few weeks back. So I'm pre-ordering mine. I'm looking forward to reading it.
They're all turning 80 at the same time. DC
I know.
Just churning out.
I know. Yeah, we just had Catwoman turning 80. Oh, you're not supposed to. Sorry. Catwoman aging gracefully. Lots of different things. Lots of different things going on. But Green Lantern is today.
I think Marvel, there's years between a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
Whereas DC's just like, nope, this weekend too.
Yeah, Green Lantern has a long and storied history. So
we didn't even talk about Alan Scott in that aging.
I know, That's true. He's doing great. He looks great. Looking fit.
He looks better than Jake Eric.
Yes, his contemporary. He certainly does. Remember in the John Davey episode where you said that Alan Scott and Jay Garrick were going to come and beat him up?
if they didn't stop publishing Captain Marvel.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, listen, buddy.
Yeah, they were gonna come and call it. If you're still listening to this podcast, you'll be excited to know that over on SoundCloud.com/allthebooks, we have a special playlist curated. So if you like these DC Comics themed episodes, we've got a whole playlist for you that has all of the spotlights. We have a special one with all the interviews. We have a Marvel spotlight, all sorts of things. If you don't like the comic book episodes, we'll talk about other things leading up to it. How about that?
Yeah, we talk about books occasionally.
That's right. That's right. That's a good attitude. It's a good attitude to have. Yeah. All right. Shall we crack open the books, see where we are with the old bookmarks? That was more of a creak.
Yeah, it was a creaky book.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like Name of the Wind, because you took so long to actually finish it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's called the Book of Life.
Okay.
I got it from a mummy's tomb.
Oh, you should not have taken that. You should
No,
not
it's
have
okay. It's
taken
by
that.
Mr. Imhotep.
Oh, that's. Do you remember when Tom Cruise did that Mummy movie with Russell Crowe that was supposed to be the start of their Dark Universe? And then they were like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
I did hear that on the success of The Invisible Man, they are doing a Wolfman with Ryan Gosling. Have you heard this?
Yeah, but Ryan Gosling is like, he's borderline box office poison.
That's true.
He is not a star that like people. I guess I could just say he's not a star, but he's not an actor like that gets people in seats the way that like his fans think. Like I like seeing him and stuff, but he's not like Ryan Gosling, the Wolfman. Nobody's going to see it.
My son and I have been watching a very young Ryan Gosling in the old show Young Hercules. That's been fun.
He's a fresh little baby in that show.
He's very young in that show.
Yeah. Learning to tie his shoes, do the bunny loop.
Yeah, you got it. I finished some stuff over the week here. I'm going to cut down the amount of comics that I've read because, again, while we're stuck in this chaos...
You're not going to stop reading comics, but you're just going to stop talking
I'm just not going to tell you all of them because I've been in a stretch where I just have not been able to sink into a book very well. Right. So I've been reading a lot of comics.
But this is we don't talk about what we're reading except when we're doing this because of the podcast.
Yeah. So
this is the only time I can find out what you're reading and what you think of them.
That's true. Okay. Well... All right. Well, maybe I'll give you a broad overview then.
Okay.
I finished Toni Morrison's novel, God Help the Child. So this was really good. The only thing I'd read of hers before, as I mentioned last week, was Song of Solomon. And I much preferred this one. She doesn't write a lot of things that are set contemporary. A lot of them are historic fiction. But this I really liked. We were following one primary character named Bride, but we also saw things from a lot of different perspectives. So occasionally the narrator would shift. But overall, I thought it was a really engaging book, and her reading of it was excellent. I think that really elevated it for me because she nailed it. Then I read some comic books. Last week I was talking about Cyborg. I was finishing up the DC Rebirth era of Cyborg.
Yes.
And it was canceled right when Kevin Grevioux took over the title, and he only got 2 issues in there, but they were really intriguing. So I was checking to see what else he'd written. And he wrote a series for Marvel called Blue Marvel. Are you familiar with this? It's an ongoing. Well, no, it's not an ongoing. It's more of I think it's a 5-issue series.
From 2008.
2008.
No, I would be in college when the Blue Marvel was showing up.
Well, it's set contemporary and it's set during the Kennedy administration. So in the flashbacks, Blue Marvel is coming on the scene and he's this like beloved superhero who saves the world. And then they find out under the mask that he's black, and there's a big blowback for that, and the government steps in and offers him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and then says people are not ready for a black superhero, so you got to cut this out. And he does. He walks away. In the present day, the Avengers are facing the same threat that he faced in the 60s, so Tony Stark and the others are trying to find whatever happened to him and bring him back in and figure out like what happened. So it was interesting. It was just a good story for one, but I really liked the parallels with history too, and I was really intrigued by it. I would have read more, but it was like I said, it was just five issues.
I have read stuff with him in it because he was in Bendis's Avengers that I read.
Okay, I started Uncanny X-Men, the stuff that takes place right after Schism, the Cyclops team.
Yes, the Keith Griffin.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not a fan of it so far, but you were big into this series, weren't you? I think you 5-starred it.
It's just weird and
it is weird.
Fun. I like that writer. I like his dialogue. But yes, it's weird stuff.
It's so like I was not prepared for just how sci-fi it is, and I usually don't like sci-fi X-Men stories as a rule.
Yeah.
But so far I'm not loving it, but I am seeing the threads of getting into the big Avengers versus X-Men event.
Well, yeah, it's a series you have to read. Yeah. Important stuff from Avengers versus X-Men come into Uncanny X-Men. Yeah. So. And for Cyclops' character and some of those other characters.
I mean, I don't want to let you down, so I'll tell you a couple others that I read real quick. I read a little bit more of Red Hulk. That was not great. It was cool because it had all of the like 70s Marvel like Werewolf by Night and all that stuff.
Sure.
They were all in it. So that was kind of cool, but not a great thing. I read Avengers 1959, which is the like Nick Fury's 50s Avengers team. Such a weird team that I didn't particularly like it. And I read Volume 5 of DC's Rebirth Justice League, and I have hated the first 4 volumes. This was a time travel story, and I actually liked it quite a bit. You know, I'm currently reading, finally, because I've had this since it came out for, over a month now, But I'm finally reading Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the new Hunger Games prequel by Suzanne Collins.
You did
it. I'm only about 100 pages in, but I'm really liking it, actually. It feels like, well, it's like 500 pages, you know. It doesn't feel like it's too far. It actually does feel like the Hunger Games, and I wasn't sure because it's been a long time, and it's a prequel, and you know it's not characters that you're used to, or at least not the fashion you used to seeing those characters in. But no, it feels like the Hunger Games. It's really engaging. I've just been very slow reading lately.
Right.
And then finally, for my book club, I'm doing one called Devil's Heart by Carmen Carter. This is a Star Trek: The Next Generation novel. And I am listening to it on audiobook cassette.
Oh. Yep. And what?
Not my R2-D2 Walkman. No, this is just a tabletop cassette player. Takes a lot of batteries. Less than a Game Gear, but still a lot of batteries. So far, so good. Read by Gates McFadden, who plays Beverly Crusher. I finished a show on Netflix called Ragnarok. I think you should watch it. I think you'd dig it.
Yeah, I've seen that showing up on like the hits or whatever they call popular and everything.
6 episodes. It's in Norwegian, set in Norway, and it's about, I guess, the second coming of Thor and like the return of the giants and things from North mythology. It's a very it walks this weird line of where I would say like 90% of it is this very like understated, moody kind of show, and then other 10% it just goes crazy. So we watched the last couple last night. And we also finished our rewatch of the classic 3 seasons of Arrested Development, and now we're going to dip our toes into the new stuff. I haven't
watched season 5.
I haven't watched season 5 either, and I haven't seen like the new season 4 remix that they did. But I had nothing positive to say about season 4, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, David Cross's character, Tobias, right?
Yeah.
Is it Tobias? Yeah, Tobias was pretty funny in that one.
Yeah,
his story stayed the whole Fantastic Four musical.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was also few and far between.
I mostly just didn't find it funny, you know?
No, it was dark and depressing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I like those actors and I like the characters.
And none of them are together because of the scheduling.
Exactly. And
so it's just...
The thing was, like, we finished it last night, and season 4 picks up immediately after season 3, which I think is a very weird thing to do considering the gap. So we weren't really intending to sit down and continue watching, but we watched maybe the first 5 minutes of season 4, and it's tonally, it just right from the start was like, oh, this is weird. So I will report back once we've finished seasons 4 and 5 and let you know what I think.
I know that you're Fantastic
on the
3.
edge of your seat. What about you? Well, what have you been reading?
What have I been reading? All right, well, then I read and finished House of X, Powers of X by Jonathan Hickman.
This is what it's all been about. You've been trying to get to this run.
Yes, I have been trying to get to this run so I can see what everybody has been talking about.
And here you are.
And I've done it. And I gave it 4 stars because it's a pretty enthralling read. Okay. You know, I have to step myself back a little bit and be like, this is different than everything else that's come before. But if it's entertaining, I don't know if everything that comes after this, because this is all set up. So I don't know if everything that comes after this will be as good. I still don't trust Hickman to nail the landing, but maybe I'll be wrong someday. It's funny because everything about it is like the X-Men are going to be all different, and they mention like all the important events that happened in X-Men, and they're talking a lot about Grant Morrison's run. And as soon as Grant Morrison was like, and that's the end, Marvel was like, okay, retcon. Just changed, just went back on everything.
What years was the Grant Morrison stuff? Was that like 2003 stuff?
I think it was 2001. 2001 is when it started.
Okay.
2001 to 2003.
Okay.
So it was like a 2-year run. Reading that stuff, there's a lot of interesting sci-fi ideas. It does balance like all these interesting new ideas that you would like in sci-fi, using the established characters and powers and histories in the X-Men. So that's good stuff. However, that means I'm now like caught up because they've only got issues like 1 and 2 of the series that came after here. And I picked up X-Men 1 to read after this, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't go back to a monthly reading schedule with with this stuff. I'm going to be taking a break from the new stuff until, it catches up a bit.
What are you switching to?
Well, I did go back and read some outliers that were slightly before House of X. So I read Major X by Rob Liefeld.
Okay.
Stupidest thing I've ever read. I read Ed Piskor's X-Men Grand Design.
Okay.
6 issues, 2 issues a story. So there's 3 volumes, and each volume is 2 issues. And basically, it's this weird thing where he's very much like an indie comic book artist.
Okay.
So when you're reading it, it's very like small panels and kind of indie comic art in there. And what he's doing is he's trying to streamline all the X-Men history together in one cohesive narrative from the beginning to basically like the end of Chris Claremont's run. Okay. Because there's a lot of retcons in X-Men history. There's a lot of different things and concepts that maybe didn't land because they got rewritten or all this other stuff. So the first volume is interesting because the 60s is probably the part of the X-Men history that feels most disconnected from all of X-Men. And so he's like, making things happen on a different timetable. The Phoenix Force is alerted very early on of Jean's presence and all this other stuff. But what happens is once he gets to the Claremont stuff, Chris Claremont was just writing the X-Men for 17 years by himself.
Right.
With the artist and everything, putting in input as well. But like he was overseeing it. So once this guy gets to the Chris Claremont stuff, that stuff is already fairly streamlined. So it just becomes kind of like, I don't know. And me having just recently reread a lot of that stuff, it's just kind of redundant. So you're now just reading it for the art and stuff. It was an interesting experiment that didn't really, especially because it's where he stops right before the 90s. And you would think you'd want to really streamline a lot of the stuff that happened in the 90s. But the way he does his story, which is a spoiler, so I won't say anything, it can't do that.
Okay.
But it's trying to streamline something that then becomes kind of streamlined anyways.
Okay.
So I read Wolverine Infinity Watch by Gary Dugan. That was stupid. I finished Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
People loved this book.
Okay.
And I thought it was kind of a slog.
Oh.
I thought the story was going to be about the angel and the demon characters working together to either stop the end of the world or, watch over basically the Antichrist. Mm-hmm. I thought they were going to because that's the thing, that the Antichrist is being born and the angel and the demon don't want that to happen. They don't want Armageddon to happen because they kind of like Earth the way it is. Mm-hmm. Kept dealing with all these other characters and I feel like I could write a parody of the dialogue because sometimes it just gets too much. I don't know. It's just I didn't really I didn't like it.
Well, if you like the concept of that story, might I suggest the 80s film Two of a Kind starring John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, where God and the devil are trying to decide if the world's going to continue or not.
Okay.
So,
or the show as well.
Oh, sure. But I don't think Travolta's in the show. Is he?
No, he's not. He's not in the no. Okay. In the show Good Angels. No, that's
Dazeem. Okay, somebody else. Got it. You know what? I forgot to tell you this. I read Black Lightning. Tony Isabella and Trevor Von Eden's Black Lightning came out in 77. This was actually DC's first black character to headline a title. It's just 11 issues, and I had read some of the later stuff because J.M. DeMatteis wrote a lot of the Black Lightning backup stories that appeared later on. So when we had him on the show, I read all of his Black Lightning stuff and really enjoyed it. And it's there on the app now. So I read that. And I actually tried to get Trevor Von Eden, the illustrator for this, co-creator, to be on the show back when we were talking Green Arrow because he illustrated a lot of that Mike Grell run. And it has such a unique look. But anyway, Black Lightning was a good read, and it was like I got to, I think, episode 9 of 11 before I realized, wait, he doesn't have any powers in this. So it was just like a cool story, and I didn't realize that like the powers came later.
Yeah, okay.
And I've only watched maybe the first 5 or so episodes of the CW Black Lightning, but I really like Cress Williams, who recorded on 90210 for a long time, in that role. So I might get back to that. But I did really enjoy the 70s run. But anyway, back to your book, Mark, buddy.
So I haven't started these things, but they are my currently readings.
Okay.
In terms of what I'm now doing, I'm going back. I've never read any of the New Mutant comics except for the stuff that happens in Inferno and Fall of the Mutants, like the original one. And then I read the stuff where Cable shows up and it starts becoming X-Force and whatnot. So I'm going back. I'm going to start at the beginning with New Mutants and just read those 100 issues. And then I'll be caught up to where I was with my 90s reading of the X-Men stuff to read some of the stuff I haven't.
I think I've read maybe the first 2 volumes of like classic New Mutants.
Right.
It's decent. It's unusual. You know.
Yeah.
It's definitely an odd run. Are you doing this as due diligence for your Previously on X-Men podcast?
Just my due diligence as an X-Men reader.
As an X-Men reader.
So,
well,
and now that I'm like caught up with the main titles the past 2 decades and stuff, it's really, I mean, I've got some gaps in the 90s with some series, but yeah, I'm just going to cruise through these New Mutants and have read them. And also I'm going to read Daisy Jones and the Six.
Oh, yeah. We were just talking about Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yeah.
Very good book.
On
Very
the new
good.
classics, right?
Yeah, we were. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of past episodes, I have gone back and I have started rewatching Community. I'm on season 3.
Oh, okay.
So I kept that.
Nice.
I took my own advice there.
Okay, yeah.
And I also watched Uncut Gems.
Oh, Adam Sandler. Okay.
Adam Sandler's new movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an Adam Sandler movie as you know it.
Sure.
It's very stressful, 2 hours and 20 minutes of watching a compulsive gambler BS his way through a lot of bad decisions.
Okay.
As he makes every choice, you just don't believe anything's going to work out. And a lot of times it doesn't. It's it's not for everybody.
Does he...
Though I will say it's probably funnier than Little Nicky.
Does he ever say, "Habadoo"? Or anything
No,
like
he doesn't.
That? He
No.
doesn't, not even
No.
once.
He is up to 11, though. I tell you what, it's nice to see him put in an effort.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely a performance movie. Like, you're watching it to see his performance because he's, all in.
I love Reign Over Me. If we're talking about serious Adam Sandler movies. It's him and Don Cheadle post 9/11 where Adam Sandler's dealing with the loss of his family. And it's such a great movie. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, I recommend it. It's good.
Is Don Cheadle an angel?
No.
Okay.
No, Don Cheadle. So the plot is Adam Sandler has lost his family in the 9/11 disaster, and it just kind of shuts everybody out. And Don Cheadle is like a high school friend, or maybe a college roommate, something like that. They have old history together, and they run into each other and sort of become part of each other's lives again. And you know, it goes on from there. But it's just very good. I made my wife watch it with me, and she was not a willing participant by any means. But by the end, she was like, "Yeah, you're right. That was good." So,
yeah, good.
All right. Well, shall we move into some book news? What's on the New York Times bestseller list this week?
Right. Yeah, what is on the New York Times bestseller list?
We took a week off, so I'm hoping there's some change. There's some movement.
It's best not to give it to hope these days. Number 10 is Walk
enough.
the Wire by David Baldacci.
Okay.
The 6th book in the Memory Man series. That's Decker and Jameson investigate a murder in a North Dakota town and a fracking boom. And remember, we're reading the combined print and ebook fiction, which seems to be probably the best thing to do right now.
Yes.
Though I have seen multiple bookstores open again.
Yeah, it's starting. It's beginning.
Yeah. Number 9, Wrath of the Poseidon. Clive Cussler and Robin Bussell. So now Clive Cussler is in franchise mode since he passed away last year.
I wonder how many of these true like collaborative efforts they still have in the can.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to go
there.
like Tom Clancy, and it's just going to be
probably
Clive Cussler's dirt pick.
Yeah, but I wonder when that changes, when it's going to go from listing him as an author to listing him as like the name above the fold, basically.
The 12th book in the Sam and Remy Fargo adventure series, a kingpin is released from prison, and a final showdown takes place in Greece.
The Kingpin?
No, not the Kingpin from Daredevil.
Okay.
No, not him.
Okay.
Number 8, American Dirt by Janine Cummings. A bookseller flees Mexico for the United States with her son while pursued by the head of a drug cartel. Number 7 is Normal People by Sally Rooney. The connection between a high school star athlete and a loner ebbs and flows when they go to Trinity College in Dublin.
It's always interesting when we do this list because that certainly wouldn't be on the the top hardcover bestsellers, but I think this list is usually more reflective of what people are watching and doing and what the trends are. This is a little bit more in touch, wouldn't you say?
Maybe. Number 6, Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner. I just don't feel right saying it.
I don't know.
Jennifer Weiner.
I think,
you know what? Me making
it's
a big
Weiner.
deal out of it is not doing her any favors. So.
I think it's Weiner. I think it is Weiner.
Jennifer Weiner.
Yeah.
Daphne Berg's former best friend asked her to be the maid of honor at her wedding in Cape Cod. Mm-hmm. They're going to have some lobster.
I worked with somebody whose last name was Butts.
Uh-huh.
They said it was Boots, but it wasn't.
Butts.
It wasn't.
Your name's Butts. It's Butts. Sorry, everybody.
Number
5, Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. An artist upends a quiet town outside Cleveland.
Still haven't watched this show.
Quiet town in Ohio. Ohio's a pass-through state.
certainly is. It takes you 8 hours to do it. But I hope you like Hardee's.
Number
Ohio.
4, Camino Wins by John Grisham. The line between fact and fiction becomes blurred when an author.
I'm never going to get this book. I'm
dead after a hurricane hits Camino Island. Are you on the list?
I am on the list.
I am on the list.
I know. I did my hold for this so early.
Sorry.
But still, I'm like, number a million.
Actually, that's how I got Good Omens and Daisy Jones. I got them from Overdrive.
Nice.
And Daisy Jones was checked out, but I got it like the next day.
Cool.
But then I had to read Good Omens to make sure I could read the other one.
Sure.
Number 3, Where the Crawdads Sing. In a quiet town in North Carolina coast in 19... I'm just going to say, a woman lives alone in a marsh, murder suspect. I'm done putting a time and place to this.
Yeah, well, we just talked about this book last week, too, with our contemporary classics.
2, new this week. We did it. Fair Warning by Michael Connolly, the 3rd book in the Jack McAvery series. A reporter tracks a killer who uses genetic data to pick his victim.
This is one I read. I want to say the first one is called The Poet. And I picked this up like years ago. And it was just a standalone. But then that character, I think it's Jack McAvoy, isn't it? But that character was brought into the Harry Bosch world. So now he exists in the same world as the Lincoln Lawyer or Harry Bosch. But
interesting.
Yeah.
And number 1 is also new this week. Hideaway by Nora Roberts.
Yep.
A child star escapes her abductors, gathers herself in Western Ireland, and returns to Hollywood.
This is about Macaulay Culkin?
Oh, jeez.
Is that who this is?
I don't think it is.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's number 1, Nora Roberts.
Speaking of child stars, I kind of forgot that. What is her name? Mae Whitman. Mae Whitman. I kind of forgot that she was in Arrested Development, and then she shows up.
Well, she just kind of disappears in the background.
Her? Eric, do you remember the Green Lantern pledge? Can you do it from memory?
In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let all who worship
Yes.
evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light.
All right. Today we're going to be talking about Green Lantern, who is turning 80 years young. I hate when people say that. I hate when people say that. I hate when people say that, or when it's like a very elderly person and they're like, "How are you today, young man?" I don't like that. I don't.
Do you like when somebody on a very hot day asks you, "How about this heat?"
I don't like that. Nor do I like when you're leaving a buffet and they're like, "Oh, I think we left some for you." I don't like that.
Yeah, you don't like that. Okay.
No.
What about when you've driven from a warm place and now you're in a colder place and they say, "Did you bring any of that heat with you?"
No, I don't. I don't like that either. Nor when you're trying to go through a door and someone holds it, they say, "You can tip me, just don't tip me over." I don't like that either.
Yeah. Are they working
like either. Yeah,
or working hard? Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
I'm a dad, but I don't go for dad jokes. Okay, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, you don't go for that.
Anyway, thank you for the recitation of the Green Lantern oath.
Yeah, no problem.
As we mentioned, Green Lantern the character, Green Lantern the franchise, turning 80 years old this year,
right?
Which DC's commemorating with the special collection.
So when we say turning 80, does that mean Alan Scott first appeared 80 years ago?
Yes, I'll get into it. I've got a nice little timeline for us. But yes, the concept of Green Lantern is 80. So much like with the Robin episode where really it was Dick Grayson who was turning 80, we kind of took a look at all of them. But
the Robins.
Way back when it seems like 5 years ago, when the quarantine began, we did a special just Twitch exclusive where I reviewed the movie Green Lantern First Flights, and we talked about some of our favorite Green Lanterns. So that's going to be coming out a little later in the month in conjunction with the special collection that DC Comics is putting out. Right now, today, we're going to focus primarily on Green Lantern John Stewart, because I know, Eric, that's the Green Lantern of your heart. But let me give you just a little rundown of some Green Lantern history. Okay. So the Golden Age Green Lantern, who was Alan Scott, was created by Martin Nodell. It appeared in the June issue back in 1940, All-American Comics number 16. The character appeared regularly throughout the 1940s, but fell by the wayside post-World War II. A lot of the characters from that time were really surging in popularity. Then World War II hit, and after that, they couldn't move a book to save their lives outside of...
Yeah, it was just... Yeah, I mean, it was a power fantasy during, World War II because they also would send their heroes overseas to war.
Yeah.
Like, they'd be helping the troops and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where Captain America was.
Exactly.
And yeah, then World War II ended, and no one
Big slump.
could give a crap about superheroes
A big slump.
for so long. Yeah.
So a lot of the characters, like Green Lantern, like the Flash, a lot of them were reimagined decades later. A lot of them just disappeared, never to be heard from again. A few made the transition. So Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Arrow. A few managed to get over the hurdle. Green Lantern was not one of them. He appeared regularly for about 10 years, but his last Golden Age appearance was in 1951 in All-Star Comics, and then radio silence. In 1959, the longtime editor of DC Comics, Julius Schwartz, who we talked about with Elliot S. Magan, told some good stories about Julius Schwartz, so go back and listen to that episode to hear about that. He liked the idea of bringing some of these Silver Age characters back, and they had just had success with the new Flash, Barry Allen, in the mold of the old Jay Garrick. So they said, hey, let's bring back Green Lantern and imagine him more as a sci-fi character, because the Alan Scott character is not sci-fi heavy. He's a little bit more mystic where his power comes from.
Yeah, yeah.
So
like his weakness is wood.
Wood, yeah.
Yeah, yellow is also kind of a funny weakness.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so different.
So the early days of the Hal
That's
Jordan...
not a log cabin, is it?
Pretty much. That's pretty much. You've just described the golden age of comics.
Okay.
But the early Hal Jordan books, I think you should read these, by the way. And they're out in Green Lantern Archives, of course, on the DC app. But they are very, very sci-fi. Very Flash Gordon kind of sci-fi. And they're a lot of fun.
Right, yeah, I know the Guy Gardner appearance is we have a mirror that can look into alternate possibilities and stuff, and it's just kind of like how Superman was anything you wanted to do, you just did it in Superman. Like Green Lantern was doing that.
Yep, and then next week everything is just completely forgotten and rebooted.
Yeah,
but so the Alan Scott version of Green Lantern faded away. And in the 70s, he started sort of popping back up when they were reviving some of these 40s characters, putting these in an alternate universe. So Earth 2 is sort of how that became known. In 2012, the Alan Scott character was brought back and revived for the DC's massive relaunch of books under the New 52 banner. He was headlining the book Earth 2 and became one of DC Comics' first openly gay characters.
Yeah.
So Hal Jordan took over the Green Lantern mantle. Hal first appeared in Showcase number 22 in 1959, written by John Broome and illustrated by Gil Kane. I mean, arguably, I would say Hal is sort of the torchbearer for Green Lantern, right? I mean, wouldn't you say in the grand scheme of things, Hal is the one?
I mean, he's definitely the one that DC, the same way they relaunched for Barry Allen, even though a lot of people grew up reading Wally.
Yeah.
It's every time
you sort of default to a Hal Jordan. But I don't really think he's the most popular Green Lantern. At least not for...
Maybe with comic book readers, especially legacy readers and everything. But I mean he's not the one that I knew growing up as a kid as Green Lantern, even though I knew of him. But you had to read older stuff to get that, and I just wasn't.
So obviously, I mean, Hal's been in at least in the comic book world since 1959, and there was a long time where he was a villainous character when he was Parallax that was kind of retconned later as to he was taken over by Parallax. Yeah. He did a pretty iconic run in the 70s, written by Denny O'Neil, illustrated by Neil Adams, the Green Arrow Green Lantern run, which is... it's very, very serious. That was when DC was like, we're going to do serious issues. And this is where Green Arrow's sidekick Speedy is on heroin and stuff. It got heavy. And then the roster of Green Lantern characters would continue to expand, including Guy Gardner, as you mentioned, and then John Stewart. So the topic for today is John Stewart. And let me give you a little bit of background on him. Eric, then... you got to take it away, because as we talked about in our TV recommendations, the DC Animated Universe is your preferred...
I did recommend that,
is your preferred DC era, your DC
That's
Universe there.
True,
so anyway, John Stewart was created by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams in the pages of the Green Arrow Green Lantern arc. It was requested by longtime editor Julius Schwartz, who wanted the roster to be more inclusive for readers. So John Stewart debuted in 1971 in Green Lantern Green Arrow number 87.
Man, you say that, and like I read that whole Green Arrow, Green Lantern road trip book, but I feel like I remember nothing outside of the my sidekick is a junkie storyline.
Well, that era has, I mean, those issues seem to bounce between doing really street level social issues and crazy like space battles.
Yeah.
So
you know what? Maybe I did. I'm getting recollections. It's been a while. Anyways, continue. Yes.
Now I had to double check on this, but I read this in a few places. John Stewart was DC Comics' first black superhero. Did you know that?
In 1971?
Yeah. I know.
You know what? I mean, Marvel isn't much better, but that's crazy.
But I had to double check that fact. But it appears to be true, outside of maybe a one-off character here or there. But he debuted in 1971, well ahead of Black Lightning, who debuted in 1977, and Cyborg, who wasn't until 1980. Mm-hmm. John Stewart became the lead character of the Green Lantern series in issue 182. And then was retained as the lead character of the Green Lantern series as Steve Englehart came in to write the series, as we discussed in our special interview with Steve Englehart. We were talking to Steve Englehart about Batman, but I couldn't resist some Green Lantern questions in there, so find that issue. Englehart was given the option of bringing Hal back, and he said, no, I think John Stewart's more interesting. And having read those stories, I think it was the absolute right call, because Hal... by this point was a couple decades into, well, I guess about 15 years or so into his run. He was so, like, all his romance with Carol Ferris and his stuff with the Guardians, it was just played out. Whereas John Stewart comes in with a different perspective and is a very different type of character. And the book really gets a lot of momentum, so much so that when it hits episode 200, it's rebranded as the Green Lantern Corps, with John Stewart taking the lead, and we see characters like Kilowog and Guy Gardner coming in to do that.
Now, John Stewart, because Hal is in the Air Force.
Yeah.
But John Stewart's a Marine?
Yeah.
Is that's in the comics? Okay, I couldn't remember what branch he was. So still coming from the military, but a different spot there.
Yeah. So Hal is just like off doing his own thing in the book. Yeah, he is Green Lantern of the Green Lantern title. So
Hal's Air Force connections always just boil down to he likes flying.
Yeah,
but I feel like John, being a former Marine, is really part of the character.
Oh, definitely.
You know, especially because Hal's played the same way like Tom Cruise is in Top Gun, just the kind of like he's cocky. He for some reason he doesn't listen to authority, but he joined the military. Yeah. Whereas John Stewart has been a Marine. He's out of the Marines now, but he's got that Marine lifestyle down.
Yeah, and I think you see that too in the way that whereas Hal is doing things like, making a giant baseball glove to stop something, or big goofy things. John Stewart's are always very very orderly. They're like geometric shapes, and like they do what they're supposed to do, but he's not going to make a giant clown car to stop a train or something, whereas Hal would.
Yes, Hal would.
John Stewart would go on to be the main protagonist of the Green Lantern miniseries Green Lantern Mosaic, which was spun off into its own ongoing title, which, frustratingly enough, is not collected ever and is not on the app. So if you want to read this series, which I do, you have to track down single issues. He would go on to share the lead with Guy Gardner for the Green Lantern Corps and would eventually take over as the main protagonist of that. During the Rebirth era, he goes on to become the leader of all of the Green Lantern Corps. At the place where I'm up to in the Rebirth era, John Stewart is in charge of the whole Corps.
Okay.
During the War of the Green Lanterns arc, he temporarily becomes an Indigo Lantern, wields that ring in conjunction.
Indigo is what? Ring. Hope? Not hope.
It's compassion, and it's compassion. I feel like every time the Indigo Tribe is written, the author's like, maybe this is what they do, because it's
that was definitely Jeff Johns running out of colors in the rainbow and feelings and emotions. Yep. It was definitely like, well, I've already done love and hope. What else do people have?
I know. Yeah. Wait, there's more colors in the spectrum? Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Anyway, he became probably the most...
Did you ever add brown to your rainbow when you were a kid?
Whatever colors I had, I was not tied into what the official rainbow colors are.
Yeah, there was always like, well, this doesn't make sense. Obviously, I should keep going.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how
keep adding more. You know what? I still don't. John Stewart became the most prominent Green Lantern for many years, and probably for people Eric's age and slightly younger, slightly older. John Stewart is the primary Green Lantern because of the DC Animated Universe, where he was voiced by Phil Lamar for the series Justice League, its follow-up series Justice League Unlimited. He also voiced the character in Static Shock, the Injustice games, and more recently in the film Superman Red Son. In CW's Arrowverse, it is strongly implied that David Ramsey's character John Diggle is in fact John Stewart.
Yeah.
You don't like that?
I don't know. If he was, just name him that.
Well,
it's how I feel.
Do you want me to tell you?
I'm not caught up. No, don't worry about it. I'll catch up.
All right.
Yeah, that was the thing that a lot of people were speculating. I think even back in season 1, before Arrow went more.
There's a lot of hints. There's a lot of hints there.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially when you meet his
God,
family.
I'm so sick of him and Lila and the Cadmus and just shut up.
Yeah, the Arrowverse.
I'm so done with you two arguing about this.
Arrowverse gets a little rough, but anyway, let's talk about the DC animated universe and let me ask you this: what was your introduction to Green Lantern?
You know, I don't know when it was. Superman, the animated series, during the 90s, they had a Green Lantern episode first.
But it's Hal, right?
No, it's Guy. I mean, it's not Guy. I'm sorry. It's Kyle. It's Kyle Rayner.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know if it's a two-parter, but it's just there. He doesn't show up again in Superman, but it's basically, I mean, the people in charge of the Superman episode have, gone on to say that episode doesn't work and Superman shouldn't be anywhere near the Green Lantern origin. And if I remember right, it is very much just Hal's origin with Kyle.
Okay.
And it just didn't work. And Kyle's fine. I mean, he's an artist, but
not to get too off topic, that's kind of their deal with Aquaman in that series too, right? It doesn't really gel.
Yeah, it was a fun episode, but I don't think he ever came back. But anyways, Kyle, I remember watching it as a kid, and it left zero impression on me.
Okay.
And so that was it. And then when they launched Justice League in 2001, 2002, somewhere around there, after they were winding down the Batman, Superman, and Batman Beyond shows, they had chosen John Stewart. And I think they chose John Stewart because they felt he was more interesting, and maybe also to, if they didn't, it would just be 7 white people.
Yeah.
So I think they were very intent on picking John Stewart for a few reasons.
Well, I think comic book wise too, Hal in like late 90s was also kind of like,
I think he was still dead.
Not a good, not dead, in the public mind.
Hal Jordan, after he was parallaxed and was killed, he became the Spectre. Yeah. And so I think that was still his state there, too.
A lot of confusing things.
Yeah.
It just made sense all around to use John Stewart.
Yeah. And so that would be probably my first real... Because even at this point, I don't know how many DC comics I've read, and I certainly wasn't reading any Green Lantern. So that was like the first real, on a regular basis, seeing the Green Lanterns. The second episode, I think it was the second episode, because they have their 3-parter premiere of Justice League, which is them fighting the White Martians and forming a team and everything. And that's fun. But the Manhunters come to arrest John Stewart because, and they're still working for the Guardians, because apparently he blew up a planet early in his career, and so he's coming to trial. And this was like my first time seeing Oa, seeing these Manhunter robots, seeing John Stewart, hearing the Green Lantern Oath, seeing other Green Lanterns. And it was like, I remember that was just like such a cool episode because I didn't know anything about this stuff.
So you were familiar with the Green Lantern concept, but you weren't thrown by the fact that it was John Stewart instead of another Green Lantern?
Yeah, I feel like I was more familiar with the concept of a power ring before I was ever familiar with the character Green Lantern.
Okay. I'm trying to remember, I mean, everything for me, I feel like with DC Comics, all roads lead back to Super Friends. But it was kind of a tie between that and the Superpowers, Kenner's Superpowers action figure line. I know that I had the Green Lantern, and the carrying case had a special compartment for each person. And in that, it had a little sticker that has the origin of each of the characters. So I know that was how I became aware of most of the origins of the characters. I remember Guy Gardner very much from when I was a little kid, and Kyle was like the hip, cool Green Lantern
in the 90s, yeah.
when I was like 12 or 13.
Right.
But I was definitely aware of John Stewart and had read stories with the whole core in it and was familiar. I remember some single issues that I still have.
Yeah.
So when Justice League started, I wasn't like, whoa, who's this? Because Green Lantern at that point had not really been in anything since limited appearances in Super Friends like decades earlier. So Green Lantern to me was just kind of like a dead character. Like he might as well have been Adam Strange. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it just wasn't. It wasn't a big deal.
So Justice League, the animated series, did air November 17th, 2001. And I did watch that. So then, the second episodes they did, the second two-parter, was the In Blackest Night, John Stewart story. November 19th, 2001. I remember watching that. Yep. And they were two-parters because they were 30 minutes long. For the first season, they would air them one part every week. It was so frustrating.
Yeah.
They changed that with season 2 where they would air the two-parters together. But yeah, I remember watching the In Blackest Night episode and being like, I have to wait another week?
A lot of thanks goes to Steve Englehart for retaining John Stewart as a primary character. And he used Hawk Girl a lot too in his stuff. So I think the Justice League shows owe a lot to Steve Englehart's writing, but I think John Stewart in particular, like the prominence of that character is largely because of that. But one of the things that I really appreciated about that was that they didn't just like call him John Stewart but give him Hal's origin or something like that, which is something they've done with a lot of other characters in that thing. I mean, they really took the time to say, no, this is the John Stewart character, and he is pretty true to the way that he's portrayed in the comics as well. So I like that they did that, and I think it is a better counterpoint to that team that they put together too, because you have a lot of old stuff with the Barry Allen Flash and the Hal Jordan Green Lantern where they're both just kind of like cocky guys running around having fun. Yeah. But I think using is it Wally West who's the Flash? Yeah,
it's Wally West who's the Flash in the Justice League, and he's like the jokester character, the funny comedic character, and they still pair him up. That's also in the first season, the Brave and the Bold episode. I think is like the first buddy cop one with them. So it's so funny because the Flash is just this goofy, jokey character, and John Stewart is former Marine. So much less patient than Hal probably would have been. Sure, but they're buddies still. Yeah. So.
I think John Stewart as a character too is just a much more trustworthy and reliable character than any of the other Green Lanterns. That's why it works so well in what I'm reading right now, the Rebirth stuff, to have him in charge, because he is just rock solid and steady and capable in a way that Hal or Kyle or Guy, certainly not Guy, are.
It plays a lot in other stories, like in their Secret Society episode, which is a two-parter. John Stewart's the main one who's pushing the team to start training and really start trying to work with each other in a complementary fashion, and it becomes kind of this big story, and that's kind of what Gorilla Grodd's Secret Society takes advantage of, that they're not really working as a team in the same way, and that's kind of and John Stewart's the initiator of that, because he has that training, and he knows you have to watch the person in front of you's back so that the next person behind you will watch your back. So they never really forget that. Even later on, one of the characters is like, have you seen his sock drawer? Just he's very like you said, orderly in a lot of things. So
the impact of that show, I think, it really left its mark in the comics and as movies and things would develop afterwards. Because I remember when they announced the Green Lantern movie, ultimately with Ryan Reynolds as Hal Jordan, there was a lot of confusion about who is this? And
I knew the difference
is not
between the different Green Lanterns, and I was still arguing with people. I'm like, I don't care about Hal. I grew up watching John Stewart. Why not? This is how most people know Green Lantern at this point. It's kind of like a lot of people who saw the first X-Men movie were probably only familiar with the X-Men cartoon growing up.
Right.
I think sometimes they just they forget that I don't know. Yeah, it comes from comics, but a lot of people know it from other stuff. So.
Well, I think especially, what year did that come out? Do you remember that Green Lantern movie?
2011.
2011. Okay, so this is not that far removed from the DC animated universe. That was what, 2004, really, right?
but I mean, Justice League Unlimited went until 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, they didn't stop rerunning, and the DVDs were a big deal. So, I mean,
but there also wasn't really anything in between. They did the Green Lantern First Flight, but those did so well.
Right. Yeah, it was a weird move at the time to not capitalize on the success of the character, especially like the majority of people who grew up on that show were prime targets for going to that movie. And I just kind of wonder, had they actually used the John Stewart character, which they'd spent a decade
I
building
feel like
up.
John Stewart in the Justice League cartoon was in more episodes than even Superman or Batman.
Oh, I think so.
Because with the first couple seasons, like Batman's like a reserve member, and they kind of shied away from using Superman because they didn't want to have to electrocute him and knock him out of the fight.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it seemed like John was there and the others weren't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, and he had a whole thing with like him and Hot Girl Shayera, where it was kind of paired together.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the whole like running plot thread through season 2, and then it doesn't go anywhere during the other ones. So I think they had been doing Batman for so long, and they had been doing a couple like 50 episodes of Superman. They were ready to play around with new characters. Mm-hmm. So, and I think John Stewart benefited from that kind of mentality.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say that he's your favorite Green Lantern?
I mean, in the comics, I tend to really like Guy Gardner.
Okay.
Because of his attitude and everything, but I think.
Do you remember that Guy Gardner like series where he stopped being a Green Lantern? It was just called Guy Gardner.
No.
And it was weird.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, in the comics, I probably lean towards more Guy Gardner's attitude and everything.
Okay.
But I think they made him a Red Lantern and kind of did other stuff with him, and I stopped being interested. Mm-hmm. But I remember
it's funny to me because I've never been a big Guy Gardner fan, but while he was a Red Lantern, sort of working that angle was the most I've ever been interested in him.
Well, during Jeff Johns,
he pairs so well. Sorry, he pairs so well with John Stewart in the Green Lantern Corps title.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When Jeff Johns was writing Green Lantern, other people were writing the Green Lantern Corps series, and John Stewart and Guy Gardner were like the showrunners of that series. So it was. I think that was the first time I even saw John Stewart in the comics. Mm-hmm. So that was nice. I remember when Jeff Johns was writing, when he was starting his Teen Titans reboot in the early 2000s.
Okay, yeah.
John Stewart was there, and I remember John Stewart making the joke about like this, and everybody's having problems with the new Teen Titans, and John Stewart's like, "This is why there's no Kid Green Lantern."
Yeah. There's a Squirrel Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But,
man,
but no kids.
You talk about the whole Hot Girl Green Lantern romance thing. That was steamy hot stuff on that cartoon.
I remember.
They didn't shy away from the kissing or the.
It's funny when you look at the history of the character from 1971 to present. It's like he has this long running history of being the stabilizing force in the Green Lantern Corps, and a lot of the times he is used to come and like back clean up when Hal screws everything up. It's like, get John Stewart in here. We need somebody reliable and strong and capable, and it's not Hal. It's John Stewart. So that happens over and over again, and that's really like how the character came to prominence too when Englehart put him in while Hal was out. But even now, in the current run of comics as we record, it's the same kind of thing. Like Hal is just, everybody's like, no, you can't be in charge of this thing. We need somebody that we can depend on, and that's John Stewart. So I think he's used really well in that run. If I were going to recommend good John Stewart stories to read in the comics, I mean, it's always going to come back to that Englehart run. I think that's a really good use of the character. That starts in issue 182, and unfortunately that is spottily collected. It's some of it's on the app, and some of it I just had to track down single issues, but it was worth it. I really loved it. So that's really good. The Green Lantern Corps title that is going on during the Jeff Johns era. I want to say that's Peter Tomasi who's writing a lot of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good John Stewart stuff.
And I ended up, like, a lot of times I would end up really enjoying the Green Lantern Corps book more than the Hal Jordan book.
Agreed.
At the time.
Agreed.
Just because it was just so much bigger and interesting. So.
And I guess I would add to that too. I mean, I haven't read Green Lantern Mosaic, but that's like the John Stewart book,
Right.
that is only single issues. But I would also add to that the current Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps book, because even though Hal, in a lot of ways, is the protagonist and the title character, it's all about the political landscape in that book, and that's all resting on the shoulders of John Stewart, who is the leader of the whole Corps, trying to forge an alliance with the Yellow Corps and all that. It's very heavy with John Stewart's skill as a leader, and it's an interesting story there. And of course, if you want to watch a good John Stewart story, what episode would you point people to?
I mean, you could watch In Blackest Night, which is the one I was talking about, which is kind of the John Stewart first focused episode. But also from season 2, there's Hearts in Mind, which is the show introducing the Green Lantern Corps and dealing with Despero. And then also Star-Crossed, which is the big Thanagar versus Earth storyline. He was kind of, a lot of the main Justice Leaguers were pulled back during Unlimited so they could focus on new characters. But the episode Kids Stuff, where a couple of the Justice Leaguers are turned into kids,
I remember that one.
Has him. And it's funny because he turns his... He gives himself eyeglasses with his ring, and you talking about Hal always doing stuff. When John's a kid in that episode, he's like, maybe I'll make a giant robot, maybe I'll make a laser cannon, and just going through all this stuff.
Yeah.
So and also the Once and Future thing, where they're time traveling, is pretty fun. So. Now, Batman Beyond's in one of those.
And I haven't seen yet the Superman Red Sun film that was written by another guest of the show, J.M. DeMatteis, but Phil LaMarr does reprise his role as John Stewart in that movie. So I have to check that out. We need to watch that and report back. I've been wanting to see that one. Well, keep in mind, in the coming weeks, we're going to have our special Off the Books episode featuring the review of Green Lantern First Flights. It's going to come out in conjunction with the DC Comics Green Lantern 80th Anniversary Special, which is coming to a comic retailer near you, if that's still a thing. One way or another, I'd like to read this Green Lantern 80th, and I'm going to go and track down this John Stewart Green Lantern Mosaic run, because it makes me crazy that I haven't read it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to have to go to eBay.
I guess I'm going to have to. All right. As far as library news, you can keep an eye out for this as more and more information becomes available. But right now we're working towards a date of June 29th, where we're going to begin curbside service. So the plan right now is, and remember, fans, how things change so quickly, but the plan right now is that we'll have set pickup times throughout the day.
What else is happening?
Down out of the auditorium entrance. So you can park right in the auditorium entrance, drop your books in the book return. We'll have a table set up at the door. You can pick up your holds and head out. You can place these holds in StarCat by giving us a call, by sending us an email to wellsville@stls.org. If you have specific titles, great. If you want us to just grab a batch of new mysteries, we can do that too. So all of that information and instructions on that are going to be coming out in the coming weeks. But June 29th is the date that we and the majority of libraries in STLS are going to be starting this, and we'll
because summer reading is
see how it goes
upon us.
Summer reading is going to start a little bit later this year, July 6th, and run until I want to say August 15th. So we're looking at some different options for that. But it's going to be interesting. I still got my summer reading program T-shirt, so you know. Yeah. I'll be rocking that, but
I've got my Libraries Rock poster on my
in the background
door here.
Yeah,
my office.
I know. Yep, good times.
So,
all right, that's going to do it for episode 151. Go out and read some John Stewart comics.
251.
Oh, yeah, you're
right.
Older
than you think, man.
I guess so.
Yeah.
All right. So long, everybody. All right, that was a good dry run. I'm going to hit record. And...
Oh, no.
Oh, come on.